Thank you, Tom, and good morning, everybody. As Tom mentioned, my name's Sean Henson. I'm the product manager for material and tooling solutions at Ascent Aerospace. I have the pleasure this morning of introducing our keynote speaker. Our keynote presenter recently retired January 2018 as the Sector Vice President, Enterprise Excellence and Strategy, after 34 years working for Northrop Grumman Aerospace Systems, a premier provider of aircraft, space systems, and advanced technologies critical to our nation's security. His team was chartered to enable the sector to become a more agile, competitive, efficient, and affordable culture by integrating strategy, technology, business systems, systems thinking, servant leadership, process and value stream management, and information systems into an integrated sector capability that enables operating models and performance through speed, cost, and efficiency. Before we begin our keynote presentation, please note that we'll be taking questions at the end. You can submit your question at slido.com and enter code #AD18 as reflected on the screen. Here to reflect on the future of affordable, integrated, and agile manufacturing technology, please welcome Christopher Kuhl.
Good morning. First, I want to thank everybody. This has been sort of a motivational thing for me as I had both my knees in total replacement since Thanksgiving, and this is sort of my target to be able to get up and walk around. And so I appreciate the inspiration you've given me to make it here today. I do apologize. I normally can memorize a speech, but the pain management sort of does things to your memory, so I'm going to read it so that we can be articulate and have a conversation. So, good morning, and I thank you as it's an honor and pleasure to be here speaking with you on this and many important topics I see in the week's brochure of events for SME's AeroDef Manufacturing 2018. And it's so nice to be near home in Long Beach, California, at a site where I've been to so many things like this. There will be many interesting topics, people to hear, and sites to visit. It should be an excellent 3 days for you to grow your skills, develop or expand in areas of interest, and hopefully meet some interesting and new people, and maybe even find yourself challenged with a new and different way to see things. Next chart. My name is Christopher Kuhl, and I've spent over 40 years in the aero defense business, starting at Boeing Commercial right out of Stanford in 1979, working on the new 767 program, and learning so much in a few years. I was given so many life lessons so early. And then as a young engineering supervisor, leaving for a promotion because they wouldn't make me a second line manager, I was too young, to Rockwell in 1982 to implement a production system for the B-1B program, first in Ohio and then in California, with the rare experience of working 5 functional jobs in 3 years to learn how things worked. And after that, in 1985, I moved blindly to Northrop to oversee final assembly industrial engineering for what I later discovered was the B2 program. Exciting times, no sleep, lots of new technical challenges, learning this was a business first and foremost. Relationships with people and customers mattered a lot, and you did nothing well with your people if they were tied to your every word and approval. Those moves were to the only 3 companies I've ever worked for until I retired this January. It was such an amazing and exciting and hard time, and I wish all of you similar and yet highly divergent experiences like mine. I got to be me, and that meant dealing with ups and downs career-wise, but I always wanted to love what I was doing with integrity, and I did. In this talk, I'll stay loosely in the region of affordability, integration, and agility for manufacturing technology and production. But many of these thoughts are broadly applied to any area running a business. Next slide. My thinking process and overview for this talk was 1, ensure there's a strategic view that includes systems thinking for the evolution of your ideas, innovations, and technology to utilization and implementation in the production and sustainment phase. 2, think hard about an integrated and structured data architecture for how you want to do agility, affordability analysis, and management. And 3, be thinking about the empowered culture and workplace alignment with the people you have and will have for technology, production, and leadership roles in the future. While I started out in commercial aerospace, most of my time working was for defense-related products and customers in the Department of Defense, U.S. government. I did get sent to Japan to learn Lean, working with Toyota, and later some time with Dr. Jim Womack and Dan Jones, who are the authors of Lean Thinking, and many other experts through the MIT U.S. Air Force consortium called the Lean Aerospace Initiative, where I was exposed to non-aero and non-manufacturing businesses like post offices, universities, health, and IT companies. So I learned a lot of things about process and culture, that product differentiation did drive who and how things got done, that true knowledge is in the doers and not the leadership, and how to understand the breakup of work best done by humans alone, machines alone, and humans and machines together, known as automation. And I also understand the business with the government is not commercially oriented and can be very illogical at times from a commercial standpoint, in some ways. And the types of things that are done in terms of aircraft or spacecraft, ships and submarines or ground vehicles are not always the same solution set in terms of design to fly away or launch activities. They all have major and minor unique secrets and sound rationale to have variability, but they all overstate the fact that they can't be more standard, process-focused, and thus agile. Before I go into my three main messages, I'd like to briefly discuss the global and domestic environment that we may be influenced by in the next few years and state the obvious that even looking a few years out is tough with so many variables that don't have previous inflection points to do good forecasting. These are worrisome times. Manufacturing in the U.S. will be flat, not shrinking but steady, due to strong electronics manufacturing and a revision in how we count production to include capability and not just volume. So be cautious of how things are characterized and reported. Defense production will be slightly up 2 to 3% for the next few years, and along with that, manufacturing jobs, about 1.5 million, will be broken evenly in thirds by defense, civil, and services, 2/3 of those in the supply chain capacity. Globally, the Chinese are growing faster, and with an additional 170 billion to next year's budget, that will continue. It's the non-military manner in which they are projecting themselves in Africa and Asia that could be a long-term threat. However, there are a lot of other countries who are not our size, but threats in their own right. All of this matters in terms of technology and providing solutions to our military to stay secure and with our allies to keep the world safe. We only have one planet. With the political environment, tariffs, terrorism, and budgets associated being unstable, your planning has to be well documented and integrated with strategy, risk, and financial planning. You can't afford to chase everything, and your plans in terms of weapon systems or security threats or the people you need in your human supply chain are all linked to knowing the environment. Just try and focus on what you are doing and where you are going and what you and your company can do to add value to keep us all safer. Always stay aware of the global environment, and please utilize the expertise in your company and the customer base, as they have 1,000 times more than what I shared here. Next slide. In thinking about the value chain from design to production and all the many sub-tiers and starts and stops between, with technology prototyping, funding by customers and company, and just changes in management, which changes interest and support, the thousands of steps in a value stream diagram would hurt our heads. The one aspect I'd inject in this dialogue when thinking about the past and recent history is the lack of systems, engineering, and dialogue for the level of importance this work is. What I mean is the requirement to see any and almost all things being done needs to include a people, a process, a product technology, and a business dimension. Sometimes there are additional ones, but always these four. To elaborate a little on the four dimensions, especially as it pertains to agile and affordable, anything done by a company includes people. Those people do work in the form of intellectual thinking and then the act of doing a process. Because we are all in the business of innovation, much of what we do centers around technology, both the ideas we invent as well as improvements we come up with for better performance. And finally, we are in the business to stay in business and to make money while delivering product to our customer. The art of learning to think in these four dimensions while doing the millions of things you all collectively do is something that takes a conscious effort and focus with sustained discipline. Most of us easily think in the technology or business dimensions, as these are generally how we are managed and measured. For the process dimension, the world seems to embrace Lean Six Sigma and process improvement activity, but very much at a surface level, with the exception in the production supply chain and a few other highly transactional repetitive areas. That's because they have a lot of inherent metrics on the outputs you need to manage process, and thus it's easier to see the benefit. Your challenge in the future will be to develop inherent cost, cycle time metrics, and measures for all the other process areas and for the enterprise as a whole. Next chart. For the people dimension, there's probably more work to be done than any of the others. We'll need to have metrics to understand people's engagement, the amount of freedom they have, the level of connection to our vision and goals that they feel, the challenges we give them, the way we communicate and earn their trust, the amount of fun they have, the interactions they have with others, the effectiveness of the tools they use to do their work, and how well do we enable work-life balance. Next, you need to learn to see and assure your thinking includes, even down to the sub-manufacturing process or specific technology insertion being developed, to use these 4 dimensions to see the linkages, the impact to others, the pitfalls to maneuver, or the synergies to help sell your ideas. Next chart. Systems thinking during the design and technology research phase should include survival of the value-added capability across the death trap that occurs in the years between a concept and idea and when interest or need by a customer program funding arises. What we need is an enhancement called systems thinking, which I feel can help in this part of the value chain for all shareholders to have far more dialogue and awareness of the range of things that are possible, technology and science, as well as other possible inventions not yet on the radar screen, all the way to the ones that are required now to make something fly or work as planned, and all the stages in between those 2 points. What I saw over and over again in my years is a lack of awareness of the competitive landscape, the technical possibilities, the costs of all these various steps and or research ongoing. And then the funding or prioritization ongoing was cut, revised or pulled to solve a schedule or cost pressure somewhere else without understanding the implications mid and long term. And that all resulted in funds drying up or staffing moved to the hot thing instead of a balanced systemic approach. While this is a reality in our world of program management and business management or engineering R&D leaders, and I'm not saying we're going to eliminate this occurring, I do feel we can do far better by taking time to integrate and share plans with each other. This is also true with strategic partners as we work with our supply chain partners and customer R&D fellows as well as academic institutions. So let's try to apply it more often. We need to also broaden our connectivity tools for internal design to include these stakeholders to the maximum extent possible, understanding the complications contractually and security-wise. One thing I've learned more in my time in A&D is seeing the whole has always helped me to get others to work better together, talk more, and broker solutions. Or at the very least, understand why not, if it can't be done, to evolve toward a culture that's more resilient to constant change. All this is beneficial to any person. We all want to know why or why not, and not just be told, sorry, that's the way it is. Next chart. Affordability and agility through integrated and structured data is one of those easy to say, hard to do things. Don't let status quo, cost, or performance data drive you. We need transparency. We need to see all the costs, and we need business people who see the benefit of our ideas in manufacturing and technology and production in terms of funding streams far earlier than they have built into their planning. There is no way one can do cost benefit or return on investment without having better visibility into the bridge from an idea to a money-making weapon system capability that does what's needed. We need to have new ideas on being affordable and agile, like some of those on the screen. Plus, I'm sure a lot of you have ideas as well. Affordability is, for me, to see where all the costs were, regardless of color of money or process being done, which is hard for my accounting friends and program managers to grasp initially, and then reduce it or make it more efficient for the same or lower costs. Learning curves apply to humans and machines in similar ways, just a different curve percent. But they also apply to all repetitive work, and if you expand one's view of a curve to become the acceptable shape of cost over time, therefore a curve or parabola, skyscrapers, whatever shape you think will happen, then all costs can be forecast and monitored. Sadly, our business systems do not make this easy to see, nor easy for anyone to understand. It always seems like we keep trying to make the production standard hours in the factory start lower or learn more quickly through integrated design and simulation, while the support in the business aspects and the material that we buy, which by the way is 75 to 90% of all the costs, are invisible to us, to the detail needed to attack. There are many war stories I have on that topic, but in the future there will be a basic need to see all costs, understand why things cost what they do, and be based on statement of work and not as a percent of something or level of effort. While not trying to force standardization across variable products like aircraft and satellites, but allow common as often as possible on any process that's highly repeatable, like facilities, design, procurement, human resources, and many others. So structuring the way we look at what we do, how we do it, process and systems used, its life cycle costs, its cycle time, its quality, who is doing the work, are all more critical than ever. You need your entity to have a structured single Dewey Decimal-like performance system so that all data attributes can be menuized for transparency, reuse of data, analytics, cost integrity, part numbering, and even scheduling. This allows you to do business from design to prototype, contracts and pricing, and proposals, to managing customer expectations and sharing data transparently to all stakeholders on quality, cost, schedule, and cycle time, efficiency, labor requirements, and risks. It also helps you to align production performance with field reliability and sustainability once the products are delivered, enabling a closed-loop system. Next chart. And lastly, while there are so many technical things involved in manufacturing technology and production, these all in the end require people to plan, execute, and improve. So as we think about the future in terms of execution and performance, we must assure the human capital side of our calculations are given the thought and resources to respond to the needs of the culture. All the companies and our customers have begun to experience the retirement bubble while simultaneously bringing on new people across a full range of employee demographics. The new, the current, and the future mixture of people is one we have not truly grasped in terms of things like empowerment, job satisfaction, transparency, project versus program management, or command and control versus team and group management. And stack on top of this diversity and inclusion, academically prepared college hires who have technical skills far beyond our specialization and time-oriented job description, grade structure, and incremental pay. This all points to major changes are needed in our cultures and companies now. Even the transition technically to production with more digitization, simulation, and modeling, and integration with business and strategy will outpace the environment we have now to manage our people. Make sure the physical environment, your security restrictions and requirements, communications needs, and tools they will need are all aligned. Assure you have the funding for meeting these new needs beyond basic research and development activity. An example of what I'm speaking about is from one of my more recent jobs, as I was learning all the requirements for running facilities and real estate, environmental health and safety, as well as security, in addition to manufacturing engineering and industrial engineering. I was overwhelmed by the scope and increased demand to program sites, corporate as well as federal and state entities, since we had to balance basic facilities to keep our people safe and dry while still growing and being responsible citizens. Providing basic infrastructure for the job is no less a priority. We began efforts to think about a concept called the intelligent workplace and identify solutions 5 years out for strategic and financial reasons, and trying to align it with R&D, NCTA, and strategic plans. It was complex and hard to get all the senior leadership to see the people who they lead had multiple things impacting or influencing them besides their statement of work. All very hard but necessary. Many people focus on the benefits of the Internet of Things in development and production, but going back to my systems thinking message, make sure you're connected well to facilities, health and safety, business development, business management, IT, human resources, and always security. At the same time, the new world must consider and balance the cyber risk of being overconnected, another very hard problem. Culturally, we must enable our people, including leadership, to be more transparent, open to failure with quick response learning, and do this across internal organizational lines as well as contractually defined lines. The electronic world, with a structured approach to data, can be very easy to use and improved continuously with the right kind of culture and leadership. Next chart. Lastly, the future workplace and workforce will need to evolve from the 1920 Alfred Sloan organizational model used in large and mid-sized companies for nearly a century. Specialization of job codes and tasks from the Industrial Revolution concept of breaking work into small pieces and paying for efficiency and output are in dire need of replacement. Our workforce is fantastically equipped with multiple skill sets, interests, and abilities, and in many ways suggests we might need to broaden job definitions to allow doing multiple things and allow self-led teams that modulate who's leading based on capability and trust versus time and grade or title. I have a lot of hope for the people I know in the workforce now, as well as those coming soon from college or other companies. Please make sure to let them be included in these kind of changes as well. Next chart. Servant leadership was one of the many things I was trying to bring back to senior leadership skill sets, and the combination of a leader who is there to grow people, coaching, while continuing to grow themselves and aligning work to match capability of our people, and not forcing every task to be program management or functional, is needed. The future will depend on empowering those doing the work and that doing the work that your splendid minds have invented. Don't just give them lip service. I wanted to share my thoughts in regards to being agile and affordable and what you do in the future, and I'm positive you will be part of enabling these changes and ideas yourself to make the future brighter with serious revolutionary change. So get out there and play hard, innovate and produce, and thanks to each of you for helping keep the world safer. Thank you. So we want to take some questions, or I didn't get the pad or anything. Oh, all right. So let's see. Here comes a bunch of questions. How do I see people and culture integrating with the factory of the future? I think I talked to that a lot. I think the people can adjust to the factory of the future as long as the factory of the future is about the people as well as the technology. And I don't think there'll be any real issue integrating those two. How can senior leaders in the industry share their knowledge via mentorship or other means? I think for sharing internal to a company, I'm hoping most leaders are sharing, are doing mentoring. I know I had probably 80-some people I mentored every year. Sometimes it was once a month, sometimes it was twice a year. Starting programs inside your company where you're encouraging certain groups of people and helping them with leadership skills. So I would say those are the types of things. What was the most impactful influence in my career? Probably early on, having the ability to do a lot of the different functional jobs, so I understood probably more than a lot of my peers how the whole place worked. And that was that systems thinking. I didn't know to call it systems thinking or systems engineering at the time. But understanding sort of from womb to tomb how both Boeing worked and the Boeing production, going to Rockwell, implementing it there, having to do a lot of the jobs. Once you wear someone's shoes, you definitely understand a lot more about what their life is like. Learning the value that every function, there's a reason in the company that we have the functions that we have program managers, and how important everybody is. So valuing everyone is something that I would say really helped because it was easier to talk to people. I have a strategic background, so understanding sort of strategically how things worked probably was some of the things that influenced me. And then I'm not a rule follower. I think, I remember when I was given the job to run all of quality and mission assurance in 2010, and I asked my boss, I'm like, I thought quality was something for people who followed the rules, and he's like, no, we need somebody to get it out of just being a manufacturing thing, and we became, sort of wanting to look at quality as an enterprise thing, and the fact that we didn't have to have all the different rules, what's the right thing to do for each of the customers, and still assure that we had a high level of mission assurance or quality depending on the product side. Any other, that's only one's coming on the computer? Or am I out of time? We're good? All right, thank you.